they're demonstrating. What are they demonstrating their stupidity right now? What are they demonstrating about in Tel Aviv? They're not demonstrating, you tried to kill us. They're demonstrating, you want to make sure that I can't have sex the way I want to.
Frank, I always say that these people are full of doo-doo. And I'm not talking about a Sephardi guy named David in the Shuk. Okay? When I say doo-doo. They're full of doo-doo. Because, and our friend, by the way, Efrat Fenixon and Avi Barak, who are, one of them is like a former leftist, or I don't know what he is anymore. He doesn't even know what he is anymore.
Stop labeling people.
I'm just saying they are former voters for Meretz. Okay, they voted for Meretz party.
I have to remember this isn't Truth Fanatics. We have to keep it a little more serious here.
Even they admit that these people are full of it. They admit that there's outside money coming in. Dude, there's Telegram groups in Israel where they're literally paying people 150 to 250 shekels plus gas money, which is very expensive in Israel, to literally come from, I don't know, the Galil or from Beersheba to drive to Tel Aviv and just protest. They don't even know what they're protesting about. They just know that it's bad. Like you come up to them and ask them on the streets, what is the judicial reform? It's bad. It's bad. We know we were told it's bad. It is bad. They're trying to wreck our Supreme Court. They're trying to wreck our system. Okay, can you tell me about the system? I don't know, but I know they're trying to wreck it. That's it.
You know what? You showed that scene of when the protesters in Bnei Brak, and then they were blasting, the Jewish music, and the guy broke down, and he remembered growing up. Let me tell you something. If this was like a couple of years ago, if this was like even after Gimel Tammuz, a couple of years after Gimel Tammuz, you got a bunch of crazy Mishichists, right? They would go there and turn that whole thing into a Farbrengen. They would immediately transform that into a Farbrengen, and it would just like suck all the life out of that stupid protest. There's not enough Mishichists anymore.
Yeah.
It's, you know what I mean? Like that's the darkness that we're in. Whether or not you agree with Mishichists is not the point. The effect they're going to have is the point.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see that. Is that happening? Like, I'd like to think something like that's happening. I'm sure there's one or two, diehards there, but you need like a small army of these guys, and you'll have that protest wrapped up in a couple of days.
I mean, listen, I'm not in Jerusalem right now. If I was in Jerusalem right now, I literally would go there and I would start just filming, meaning I would start filming the people who are the counter protesters, which are the people who are in favor of the irony, those people, 500,000 of them came out to Gan Saker, and they stood there peacefully, quietly. There's a person making a speech, somebody's making a speech. A few people made speeches. They didn't they probably did throw some garbage. It's 500,000 people. But they show videos of these supposed leftists who are, they love the environment so much, just dumping crap all over Tel Aviv and all over everywhere. And if you come up and say, like, look, what are you guys doing? Oh, you understand, that we're not doing this because we're trying to, we hate the environment. We're doing it because this is against the regime. This is not against the earth or the environment. They always have an answer for all their crap. Always have an answer.
Yeah. That's exactly what the anarchists and the communists are always saying to all the poor farmers, that they ate all their food, they raped all their women, and said, "We're not doing this to you. We're doing this to fight the monarchy." You know what I mean? Like, and and you have all these different sides coming and just essentially like horribly abusing the same poor people, right? Just sucking them dry and then giving them the same excuse. Oh, we're doing it to save you. Yeah. We raped your wife to protect her from getting raped. You know what I mean? So that's what they said. I'm not making that up. I'm not being dark. That's literally what was happening. Like, especially talk to the Mennonites from Russia. Anyway, so basically, somebody asked in the comment section what a Farbrengen is. A Farbrengen, it's a Yiddish word, which I was told is translated as a gathering of souls. Hasidic guys, they get together and they get real. They drink and they get real. But you get together with people that care about you, that you trust, right? And then you sing songs, you try to get to a high state of spiritual awareness, okay? And then your buddies tell you what they think you got to work on. They say it out of love, you accept it, and you do the same thing for your buddy. That's a general description of what a farbrengen is, but there's a lot of love. I know it sounds a little judgmental, but really it's a real farbrengen is you don't feel the judgment, you feel the care, you feel the love, and there's a lot of music and a lot of embracing, and it's a feel-good time. That's basically, it's not a feel-good time, but it's a necessary thing. Okay, it's a mix of everything. So that's what the Lubavitchers, especially the Mishachists, would do. If you had a whole army of them, and they'd come down there, and they, that whole thing would be transformed. So I hope that happens.
Yeah. But somebody's writing. Oh, sounds wonderful. Yeah. So what else? What else is there? I mean, I don't know. I know what else. I'm just looking at what's going on in Israel. It's funny that the pilots, I guess El Al pilots are saying that they're not going to fly because to protest against Bibi, against Netanyahu. But who are the people who actually fix the planes? They are the people who vote for Bibi. They are the blue collar guys. So it seems like it's basically an elitism versus blue collar issue in Israel. It's not even an issue of left and right anymore. It's just elitism and blue collar. And most people in Israel, I don't know if most are blue collar, but most people in Israel are
blue collar. Most people in Israel are blue collar people.
Blue collar, but also even if they work, let's say, in an office, it's a blue collar mentality. They are family people. They are values people. They just want to live. They just want to go about their lives. They want to work. Some of them have businesses. Some of them work for paychecks, whatever it is. Today, I think yesterday or today, the head of the Histadrut, the labor unions, usually when labor unions go on strike, they give, I think it's like 2 weeks notice. The guy is like, we're going on strike today. By law, these people are not supposed to be reacting to anything political. They're supposed to be, waging strikes about labor disputes, literally labor, like something that has to do with something that goes on in a workplace. Even if you're saying it's so stupid that they, when they declare a strike, they do it in the stead of a private company. Like imagine in America, if I don't know, like the AFL-CIO declared a strike in the name of Apple, right? Apple has its own workers. They don't need the AFL-CIO, wherever the hell, to declare a strike. They have their own people. They could just declare a strike. It's a private company. In Israel, it's not like that. If Teva wants to strike, the Histadrut strikes in their stead. But even if you say that, the Histadrut should not be striking or shutting everything down because they disagree politically. That it's ma kesher, as we say. There's nothing to do. What does it have to do with the price of tea in China? And this is what they're doing. They're doing this like we're doing it now. We're doing it now. That just goes to show they see that they're losing the Supreme Court. That was their last lever of power. What's their next lever of power, or their kind of most powerful lever of power? The Histadrut. And the stupid part is that Bibi, and this is what I've been telling my friend who loves Bibi like he loves his own relative. I said, man, I made Aliyah in 2010. Bibi has been the prime minister since 2009, right? For the better part of 14 years, he's been the prime minister, almost 14 years. And he hasn't handled the Histadrut. He hasn't weakened the Histadrut. Some of them are his friends. He hasn't handled the monopoly guys, the monopoly people. Some of them are his friends. That's the reason he's in power. The guy hasn't done literally anything. Nobody can show me what he's done. They can show me what he's done maybe with foreign policy, which I agree with, which I believe he was sent. Literally his reason for existence is to fend off Obama and his attack dogs. He did the job.
Now I'm not so sure. Now that's what I thought too.
But now we're not so sure. Yeah, because clearly you have not only European money coming in for decades, you have American Democrat leftist money coming in from the outside. What do you think they're paying these? They're getting this money to pay these kids to protest, 150 shekels. This is $50 for thousands of people, or $70 for thousands of people per person, and gas money. It's not coming from Israeli coffers. I can tell you that much. It's not. If it came from,
I hear what you're saying. I was referring more to the fact that he he pushed, the poison on the whole country.
That's I'm talking about when Obama was president, the whole 67 lines things and everything like that. But
now it seems like all these like different entities are not really different entities. They all kind of converge on the same.
They converge because all you have to do is read the Tanakh, and you see that at one point the king was, it's like what Joker used to say, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I think this is exactly what happened to, relatively speaking, I don't want to even call him a hero, but relatively speaking to Bibi, even though he did save, he saved hostages when he was a young guy, when he was in Seret Matkal, but like, that's what happened to him. You overstay your welcome. You become basically more and more and more elite. Like the guy started out as an elitist, essentially, but he's at like peak elitism, right? He has nothing to do with the people. He has nothing to do with the people who vote for him in the shuk. He goes to the shuk. I don't know. Every time I see him going to the shuk in Jerusalem to the market, and you got these like guys from Morocco shaking his hand, screaming Rak Bibi, and I'm just like, I want to come up to those guys and be like, you realize he doesn't care about you, right? Like, there's maybe one guy in the entire Knesset who does care about you, sort of, and that's maybe Ben Gvir.
Oh, I mean the Ethiopian guy that they kicked out?
Ben Gvir and the Ethiopian guy. Those are the only two people who didn't push for mandates, and who didn't call people who didn't take the vaccine as Rodfim, like this guy in Australia. Which I can't even, it pains me to even think about that story.
What's the Ethiopian guy's name, by the way?
Gadi Yebarkan.
I want people to know his name because listen, people should know his name so that, if we do have a choice of how to drain the pus out of the Knesset, meaning everyone, a good person to possibly, think of, Anyway.
Yeah. By the way, Likud got rid of him after he piped up. And by the way, he actually, it's funny, he was actually kind of prophetic, but for not the reason that he was saying that he was telling the government basically, if you're not careful, you're gonna have a uprising. The people are gonna get pissed off at you. You're gonna push them too far. But he wasn't talking about what's happening now. He was talking about he actually thought that the people would rise up against the COVID stuff. He was wrong. I mean, it's just, where were they? These people are full of crap. Where were they in the last 3 years when the government was locking them down, fining them? You could say, well, Tel Aviv wasn't bearing the brunt of it. I just remember while Bnei Brak and Mea Shearim was being cracked down on, people in Tel Aviv were sitting in cafes and bars. Nobody was touching them. The cops didn't care what they were doing during COVID. But even so, like, there were moments where the country was closed down, the whole country. Where were these people? I mean, there were some protests, but these were just grassroots. It wasn't funded from the outside. These were people who came out. I don't know.
Let me say something. This might be obvious to a lot of people sitting here, okay? Perhaps not to everyone listening. They're going to protest whatever is the most important thing to God. The way we behave, the way human beings, God created human beings, gave some rules for us to choose to follow. He wants us to behave, especially the way people behave sexually. That's the most important thing to God. You might not like it or whatever. I'm just saying that's a fact. Okay, there's a lot of ink devoted to how you do that, because that whole situation that God set up is very important to him. It's the most intense. It's the most everything. It's the most everything. Okay, and so it's the most important thing to God, and it's the literal metaphor or the blueprint for the relationship of humanity to God himself as a married couple. Okay, so that's of course what they're going to protest. Anything which challenges their ability to go against what God wants, or even if it's not real, nobody said that we're going to mess with the Supreme Court to specifically interfere with all your freaky stuff that you want to do. Okay, nobody said that, but that's the motivation. They're scared that there's even a possibility that might be threatened, even if it's not a real scare. They're leaping at shadows. This whole thing is about people scared of their own shadow. You understand? They think of something that might eventually happen, even when nobody even said a word about it. Even the religious guys in the Knesset are like, we don't make me think about what you do, what you want to do, the freaky stuff that you want to do. Can you just stop talking about it? Just, I don't even care. You know what I mean? Like, God will destroy you. I'm not interested in getting involved in that. You know, like, I don't know what they think, but nobody's interested. Okay. But that's why these people are protesting right now. It's really 1-to-1. It's 1-to-1. Okay. That's the core of it. I'm sorry if this sounds vulgar, but you know, we got to get to the point. That's what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever is most important to God, that's what they're going to go out and protest the most.
I mean, we see that. You see these ladies with the Handmaid's Tale. They even said, like, we don't even care if they cancel the judicial reform. Leftists, they interviewed them. They said, we're going to keep going until just we get Bibi out. To which I say, let's take a look at, and I said this to you yesterday, Frank, let's take a look at what happened in Iran. When Iran elected in the 50s this guy named Mossadegh, the CIA came in, they whatever they thought he was going to be, a socialist, a communist, whatever, erroneously, not erroneously, they got him out of there. They installed their guy, the Shah, right? And the Shah, you know, again, he was secular, you know, Western like values, whatever, but he was a dictator, right? He had a good relationship with Israel, but he was a dictator to his own people. And then they removed him and they put in a religious dictator, real theocrat.
But just a second, no, I'm not gonna challenge you. I just wanted to ask you a question because I'm not clear on it. Like, who is he putting in the torture dungeons? Were they socialists, anarchists, and stuff like that?
Some of them were socialists. Some of them were just people who were against. It was a junta. It was a junta. It's stuff that they have in like South America. It was a similar system. That's who he was putting in. He had this thing called Savak. You know, that was his secret police.
He was like a Iranian Pinochet or whatever, right?
Yeah, like, I guess you could say that. Yeah, basically. But it's like he's an elitist. He was, you know, it's like some sort of a. Essentially it's a royal family. Like his son right now has been in Europe for years. You know, but now his son is one of these like freedom, you know, fighting for the freedom of the Iranian people, stuff like that. He doesn't want to be a dictator, at least not that we know. But you know, the Ayatollah came in 1979, and now you got a real theocracy. And so I'm thinking to myself, you know, guys, the one thing stopping, you know, if these people think that this new government is going to install theocracy, which they wouldn't be able to do it if they tried, right? And let's say if they wanted to, the thing stopping them, ironically, is Bibi, because he doesn't want that. You know,
the main thing stopping it is that there's nobody in the Jewish world who wants to become an Ayatollah.
Yeah. Nobody wants to become an Ayatollah.
Nobody wants to do that.
With the exception of a couple of guys from Shas, nobody wants to be.
Yeah, but nobody's gonna take him seriously, you know. Like,
I know. They tried to get women to put on like to cover. I don't know. You can't wear skirts, whatever. Go to the. I don't know. It's just like nonsense. Even the Ashkenazi Haredim are just like
getting the Torah Karta to become the prime minister. I don't think so. Okay.
No.
That's not Jewish.
Okay? Yeah, that's not. First of all, it's not Jewish. Second of all, they know if they even try something, then even right-wing secular people are going to revolt against them. You know, you're talking about like secular Russians. You're talking about a bunch of Masorti people are going to revolt against them.
I don't think they care about like when it comes to the religious Jewish mindset, they don't care about who's going to oppose them because we got God on our side, right?
Yeah, but the
problem is Jewish people don't believe that God supports something like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know, we learn in Torah that God brought us here and to give us free will to choose from one thing or the other, right? You can't install an Ayatollah, a Jewish Ayatollah, and then expect to give people the opportunity to do Torah, right?
Listen, we barely have, we have these two chief rabbis, the Sephardi and Ashkenazi. Do you think most people pay attention to them? I mean, Ovadia Yosef passed away, a blessed memory. Okay, he had like the biggest funeral in Israel. He had a lot of even Sephardi, secular people come to his funeral. But he wasn't he didn't rule like an Ayatollah. He said things and they wrote things that he said in the newspaper. They lambasted him for it, but it's just like it's a joke.
I want to can I give you a good example from real life?
Before you do that, can I just finish that line of thinking? So I was just going to say that they're gonna overthrow Bibi. Let's say they overthrow Bibi, and what are we going to get? We're going to get soft tyranny from I can't even call it the left. We're going to get soft tyranny from whoever's going to replace him from the opposition. It could even be Bennett. It could even be Saar. We saw what Bennett is capable of, what he did during COVID. And then, and I told you this as a silver lining, like as basically after a short period of time of having these people, we're going to have Mashiach. Hashem is going to have to press the Mashiach button because the alternative will be a bunch of Ayatollah wannabe guys, or just people are going to take pitchforks and just come at them. It's going to get to that point, I think. I don't know. Listen, I told you yesterday, I'm not testing God. I'm
scared when you say God has to do something, because if I get the feeling, this is my pure speculation. The more you say God has to do something, he's like, oh, really? Don't do it, please. So, all right. So, stop it.
Yeah.
But no, I just wanted to give you here's the most extreme thing that could happen in the Jewish world, the religious Jewish world.
Yeah.
And I was a part of this. When I was 17, I took a couple of my friends to Israel. They were not religious at that time. I wanted to give them it's kind of like a birthright type of program. This is kind of before birthright, okay?
Yeah.
And so part of the program was they took them to different cities to spend Shabbos. Okay, so in this one time we went to Shechem.
Yeah.
Okay. And they set us up in different households to spend Shabbos. They put my friend in a household with a very angry 15-year-old girl, who was very upset that her parents moved there to because I don't know, she's from LA or something like that, right? So now she's living in Shechem and she's very angry and she's lashing out. And they put my friend Stuyvesant, I'm not going to say his real name, in that, right? And I brought him here because my hope was that he gets to see the Torah is real and whatever, you know what I mean? Instead, they put him with this 15-year-old girl, and obviously he's only interested in the girl, and of course he's very influenced by what it's like that's how leftists recruited people. It's always like with attractive female recruiters, they'll really get you on board with the mission. Okay, so that's what happened to him. Yeah. And I fell into I became Taliban for a minute. I got real angry, right? So I went and I complained to the rabbi, who was a Yemenite guy, black hat, but with the peyot and everything, right?
Yeah.
And and he's an old school fella, and I told him, I was like fuming mad, and he was like trying to calm me down. He's like, don't worry, I beat her with a stick. And he was smiling. And obviously I knew he was joking, and he tried to make me realize how I was getting a little Muslim. You know what I mean? And that's the guy who could tell you. You know what I mean? He came from Yemen.
Yeah, he's Yemen.
He actually came from Yemen.
As my friends like to say, they didn't have floors in Yemen. We continue.
They didn't. Okay. So basically, that's about as extreme as we get, folks. One guy gets one 17-year-old kid gets upset for 2 seconds, and then the rabbi calms him down by telling him, just relax. This is what you look like right now. All right, a rabbi from the most primitive religious society.
If anything, we've been so, and I include like Sephardic and Mizrahi Jews in this. Everybody's been so what's called galutified, exile-ified, that we wouldn't even be able to remember. And when I speak about this all the time about the whole thing of the Jewish people needing to remember what it's like to be tough. That whole comes in a whole basket, the whole thing that you just described, but it comes in a basket of also being tough. Again, even if we wanted to set up whatever you describe as a theocracy, Jewish Iran, first of all, let's go over to Iran. How do they even pull it off? They have this thing called a majlis, this council, right? The council rules based on whatever it is they figure out how to rule from Islamic law, or their version, which is like Shiite whatever customs or whatever ideology, and they have this whole thing of the Mahdi, their Messiah, whatever it is. And so and then you have the supreme leader, right, Khamenei. But even the president that they allow to run for president, which is a kind of a figurehead, and I guess you can call him even a foreign minister, he acts as more of a foreign minister role, is approved by this majlis, by the supreme leader. Meaning they'll allow a person like Ahmadinejad and Rouhani to run, or another guy that they have now, but they won't allow the Mousavi guy, the green guy of the Green Party or Green Movement to run. Literally, you could look at the list of people that apply to run for these, presidential elections in Iran. So let's say there's like 30 guys, let's say 40 guys. I'm just saying a number. Maybe 5 of them will be approved by the Majlis, over the supreme leader, and the other, and then they'll say the list, this person is anti the people, anti the anti the idea of Iran, anti the Quran. What is the reason they didn't let him? He's anti this, anti that. He could be religious and he could say, I'm a reformer. I just want to reform the things in the country. No, you're anti the Quran. Can you imagine that? Listen, they did this once to a person. We know who that person is in Israel. They did it once, and they did it to the religious guy. The leftists did it to the religious guy. His name was Rabbi Mar Kahana, blessed memory. They didn't allow him to run the second time. Why? Because they deemed him an extremist. They deemed him a racist. They deemed him whatever it was. He was probably the most Jewish, literally authentically Jewish person to ever run in the Knesset ever. They saw that he could eventually become maybe the prime minister or a very, very powerful person in the country. And they're like, we have to put a stop to this. He wasn't going to install theocracy necessarily, even though he used to say...
They lied about him.
He himself used to say, and he was right. Listen, he said the Torah and democracy and Western democracy don't mix. They knew that, he said that he believed it. But
look, I believe the same BS but I was happy. When I was like 16, I was very militant, and I liked the hearsay about Meir Kahana. When I actually listened to his interviews, I'm like, this is not my extremist leader that I was hoping for. Yeah. It's like everything he's saying sounds so it sounded milquetoast to me.
It's Parv, yeah. It sounded Parv, yeah.
It's sort of like, here a famous thing that people say that he said was, there's so many of them. You know what? I'm gonna say like this. He was talking about he was on some talk show.
Yeah.
And he was saying how you want to kick Gentiles out of the country. There was a Gentile talk show host. Yeah. And he's like, I don't want to do that. I just feel like we have the Torah has installed in it already an institution for how Gentiles, actually Israel was made for Gentiles to come and live in the country. There are stipulations.
Yeah.
You can't just come and do whatever the hell you want. You can't come to Israel with a mindset of like, I'm here to kill everyone. I'm sorry, we're not going to accept you. I apologize. We don't mean to be not liberal, but it doesn't feel like that is safe for our people. There are some conditions. Like you can't want to kill us.
Yeah.
Is that crazy? Okay, not so crazy. You have to follow the 7 laws of Noah. What are the 7 laws of Noah? Oh, basic morality. Don't kill, don't steal, don't do weird sex stuff. Don't abuse people. Don't eat animals' limbs while they're still alive. Just be a human being, basically. Okay. Yeah. And we assume that you're coming to live to Israel because you believe that the Torah that Moses received is the correct communication from God, right? Is that not why you're here? Yeah. Okay. So enjoy. And then the Torah says that we have to help people like that financially. We got to help them set up a home and make sure they don't starve to death. Give them, just help them out, whatever, like help them start up a business. That's what Israel's for. So that's what he was talking about. And somehow that turns into no Gentiles in Israel. So it's always the exact opposite of what they're saying.
Yeah.
He's a very, very moderate person. He was the most moderate, level-headed person that Israel could have ever had as the prime minister. Yeah. And you threw it away.
The only thing that people didn't like, it's not that I didn't like it. I just that I think at the point that he was already saying it in history that it wasn't even feasible anymore. He kept saying, like Arabs have 20 Arab states and 1 Jewish state, right? So why don't they go live? Why can't we just send them out, right? So people started saying, oh, ethnic cleansing. Why can't we send them out? And, listen, he wrote a book called in 1981, I believe it is, 82. You could literally read this book. It's called They Must Go. And it feels like you're reading it today. And he was talking about, many people make the mistake that we're only talking about, the Arabs who live in Judea and Samaria and Gaza, That's where the terrorism comes from. And then he gave all example after example after example of Arab citizens of Israel who are, they're not downtrodden, they're not living in refugee camps, who live in Nazareth and in Haifa and in the north and in the south, who committed attacks or support attacks, or communist, socialist, or Arab organizations. Example after example. There's like chapters of this in that book. And he goes, lest we live in an illusion that these people are not essentially a fifth column, that they don't want us out. Even the guy who, I don't know, runs your neighborhood little, supermarket, Makolet, little grocery store, or the guy that cleans your... Dude, look what happened in Merkaz Rav Yeshiva in Jerusalem. The guy was a janitor for years in that yeshiva, and then one day he comes in with, I don't know what he used, an Uzi or whatever, and just mowed guys down. It's just, it's like in the movie, I hate to, it's not funny, but Naked Gun, the guys just what's his name? Reggie Jackson has a microchip in his head. Somebody activated it, and now he's like, I must kill the queen. He's just like that. There's a microchip there, unfortunately, and you never know who has the microchip at any moment. And that's what he was saying. And it resonated.
Melanie, the actress Melanie Griffith?
No.
I'm pretty sure that it's her, not some famous actress. I think it's her. She grew up in a household of fruitcakes where they had a lion.
Yeah.
She grew up with a lion. Okay.
Yeah.
Some people, they hang out with lions. There's a guy called the Lion Whisperer in South Africa, right?
Yeah.
Every time he goes out there, he knows, I understand that this could be the last time that I see, because he understands what a lion is. He loves them. He loves them. He wants to take care of them, but he understands what they are. Israel is a place, is a people who live with, they're in a delusion. They think that they're living with kitty cats, even though they're not. I mean, they somehow, when the kitty cat turns into what it is, it's not a kitty cat, right? They get into the same kind of mindset about the vaccine. It's the same. It's the same denial mechanism kicks in. Oh, this is just one off. It's one off. That's just one off.
Yeah.
So that's our enemy. That denial mechanism.
Yeah.
I don't know how to fight.
I'm reminded of a story, and actually Lowell probably also remember this because this happened in our neighborhood in May 2021 when they had this kind of mini intifada going on. Listen, right around the corner from my house, or the adjacent block from where I stayed, kids from this, I guess you can call it affluent Arab neighborhood right next door, or part of our neighborhood called Abu Tor, just came and they torched, the backs of cars. They set them on fire. The car was still intact, but they torched kind of the trunk of the people's cars. Now you can say, well, these are little kids have nothing better to do, but dude, these are wealthy kids. They're not living in a refugee camp, but yet they're inspired what their brethren are doing all over the country, and they feel like so there are Jews that live next to us. We're gonna make sure that the car that we torch is not a UN car or an EU car, and they see UN plates. Our neighbors are UN cars at EU. That's actually why we don't have as many problems because they're gonna lose their source of funding if they start problems in our neighborhood. But they still did it. They still did what they wanted to do. Didn't stop them. So, but even so, Rabbi Kahana, that's the irony of the whole thing. It was the leftists. That was the only time they banned anybody from running, when it was a religious person. Actually, no, I'm sorry. They did it a second time. They banned, the Supreme Court banned, I believe it was this guy, Ben Ari, also a Kahanist guy, recently. I think it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Michael Ben Ari. Yeah, he's part of the...
want to expose how ridiculous their entire worldview is and their entire way of governing were these two guys. Of course, those are the only ones that are going to be banned, right?
Yeah.
It's such a simple equation. You have to be so asleep to not see how simple it is. Folks, just read his writings. You know what I mean? They scared people from Rabbi Kahana so badly that people are scared to touch. Yeah.
It's
if you touch his book, you're gonna burst into flames or something like that. Like, yeah.
No, he's a third rail. You know, he's a.
I want to say something to regular secular people in Tel Aviv, for instance, right? Like I have family members like this. Your worldview is stupid. It's not in line with reality. Here's why it's stupid. I'm not trying to berate you. Your worldview, I understand your mindset. I get what you want and why you want it. And it's reasonable. I get it, right? But if you're just using pure kind of like, oh, this is what I want, wouldn't it be wonderful?
Indulgences, as we like to call it.
No, but not even like, I'm just talking about like regular people, not the craziest. I'm talking about like the guy wants to go, he wants to go to the beach. He wants to be in shape. He likes to see pretty girls. He wants to go eat some good food, sit with his friends and laugh and love. We're not talking about anything controversial here. I'm just saying that what I just described, that's the mindset. So they think that the Supreme Court is going to interfere with that, right? And guys, you don't have a realistic understanding of what the world of the nature of the world. There's a reason why what you are dreaming about can't manifest in physical reality. All right. And it's a childish view. You're fighting right now for something that is childish and irrelevant. It's stupid. It's stupid. No one's told you that, right? Everything that you think is mostly stupid. Okay, because it's based on your wishes. You can't do that. Okay, you wish that if you just kind of were very welcoming and wondering, and you would embrace your Arab neighbors and they wouldn't want to kill you. Well, why isn't that working for you? And when it doesn't work, you want to go, you want to stick your head in the sand, right?
Like give away land to them and hope they stop.
It's the same vein of thinking.
Okay, so Frank, what would you say to people like who say in response to you, well, you're the one that actually has childish thoughts because you're the one based your whole life on a fairy tale book.
I could prove the fairy tale book is 100% real. What you call a fairy tale book. I could prove it. There's a reason why I believe it. And there's a reason why I have total 100% faith, not faith, but knowledge that it's real. Okay. And I can prove it to you if you sit still for 15 minutes. Okay. If you can do that, right, with your, if you can do that, I can, that's why I believe, that's why I give it such authority. Okay. If you want to know why I give it such authority, you can sit still for 15 minutes, but you're not going to. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that. I don't want to be negative. So far, you haven't. Okay, this is up to every one of these people that I've ever spoken to. You haven't. You'll do anything to not sit still, because once it starts to sound like maybe you're not 100% right, that it's a fairy tale, you're going to run away because you think that just like what you think this, with the Supreme Court, you think that once you realize the Torah is real, no more barbecues with pretty girls and Fanta, like the whole Zohan fantasy, like the intro to Zohan was on the beat.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what, so you think that's going to disappear the moment you realize, and immediately you start with you end up looking like me, or, you start wearing like black and white and you look like an ancient penguin, right? So that's immediately what happens. I'm not trying, I suppose it could be humorous. That's the thought pattern.
Listen, I said, Frank, I said this yesterday.
Beautiful girls who are scantily clad, no more good food, just very upset looking.
Frank, I said this yesterday that the Israeli leftists who are protesting now, they are so religious. They're so religious. It's just the problem is their religion God is not anywhere present. So now you can imagine if they were religious, and I think they actually know this. If they were to turn religious, they'd be the biggest tzaddikim who ever lived. These people, they would use their what's called zrizos, their I don't know, alacrity for Torah mitzvot and the land of Israel. They would be the biggest settlers. They would be the biggest Hasidim. They would be the biggest, I don't know what. Bigger than the people that you see today.
I want to tell you something. I want to respond to that, what you just said, okay?
Okay.
This might not seem like a direct response, but just listen carefully.
Okay.
When I was in Jerusalem more than 20 years ago, I went, it was right off King George Street. Can't remember exactly. It was, there are two shawarma places that we would go to. One of them we called it Badat's because that's the hashgacha they had. But I don't know, that wasn't the name of the place. It was right off King George Street. Across the street from there was a very high fashion clothing store.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to, I came with like messy yeshiva guys. I needed to buy something. I was looking for a shirt,
Mhm.
and the guy, when I came in there, right, it was the most snobbish possible store, because my brother, when he was a teenager, he worked in one of those kind of stores on Avenue U in Brooklyn, you know, like for the rich
Yes.
Syrians.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So, but the guy,
yeah.
so it was very
Jordache.
fast. What is it?
Jordache. Every time I think Syrians and clothing, I think of Jordache. You know,
Well,
Syrian.
they can't be Jordache jeans, but I'm talking about like a very high end like clothing store. This is in Jerusalem. Okay, so the guy sitting there, he was wearing a kippah, right? And he had tzitzit, but he was like super fashionable.
Yeah.
Right. Everything in his store was like $1,000 and whatever. Okay. He looked at us and he's like, "We don't have anything for you." Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously, that wasn't a very pleasant experience, right?
Yeah.
But I was thinking to myself afterwards, if that guy was the representative of religious people, like if all of a sudden religious people just threw their freaking black hats out, right? They burned them, giant Borsellino bonfire, okay, and all of a sudden adopted this guy's, you know, fashion or something of that, right?
Yeah.
You would have a completely different reality because the Israelis, the secular Israelis, who are literally, if the guys who were saying we need some judicial reform, if they're dressed like that guy, there would be no protest.
Well, Frank, I mean, I hate to insult anybody, not here, but insult any of these religious guys. But when they attempt it, they end up looking like parrots.
So, oh, don't start with the Miami, dude. I'm trying to make a serious
Miami.
point.
I'm not talking about Miami. I'm not talking about Miami.
We had a discussion before where
I'm not talking about Miami. I'm talking about.
Let me explain. We have some friends who they came from the Haredi world in America, all right? Yeah. And they didn't want to stop being religious, but they wanted to kind of like
they wanted to spice it up.
They wanted to spice it up a little bit. So they end up, you know, dressing a little bit crazy. You know, they go too far. You know, they get a little too flamboyant. Okay, there's a little bit too much pink.
They look like they're in a rap video, basically. You know.
Yeah, they try. You know, they're trying to look like. I don't know who they're trying to look like, but
DJ Khaled. It's a DJ. I call it the DJ Khaled look.
I never saw DJ Khaled wear pink, but whatever. Okay, maybe he does. I didn't see it. Okay, so basically, that's what he's talking about. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like not looking like a parrot. I'm talking about looking good. Okay, if all of a sudden everybody, you know, if the religious became the you know the highest fashion in the land, right? Because it's all about perception. Like none of these protests are based on spiritual or physical reality.
I know. Yeah.
Right. You scare them the way you look. You look like I have a buddy who he's kind of an older fella. He had a business in Russia, and right when the Hasidic tourism started in this former Soviet Union, you know, where they take Hasidic guys to the graves of ancient sages, right, of our greatest sages that are still there. So there were people who started businesses giving these guys tours and taking them around, right? So there was if you can imagine, you have the Soviet Union, and nobody's seen a Hasidic guy for over 100 years. Nobody's even seen what they look like. Most people, okay, especially like, you know, rural Ukrainians, right?
Yeah.
So my friend, this guy Misha, he's a Jewish guy. He's not religious, but he told me that when he first brought the first batch of Hasidic guys to like Zhytomyr and you know Bardichev and you know and places like that, Medjugorje, he said the Ukrainians, they looked at them like they were extraterrestrials, you know, like they were from outer space. And they asked him, "Who are these guys?" And he said, "They're Scottish." He told them they're Scottish, and they got away with it because they're like, "Oh, maybe they are Scottish," you know. Like, I'm just saying that there's such a polarization that happened in the Jewish people in the past 300 years.
Well,
right?
I'm gonna explain part of what happened in Israel. Is something that I told our friend yesterday, who talked about people just need to have unity, and you know what I call the Rodney King kind of wish or bracha. You know, can't we all just get along? And I said, you know, I would love that, but you know, the Israeli media, let's say you be generous, and they started this in the 70s and the 80s. The Israeli media, Israeli programs, everything you see on television in Israel, every single day, every single waking moment is against Torah and or just religious people. They lampoon religious people every day. And you like to think, if they had done this, it'd be one thing if they just did this for like a few years and then they realized, okay, like it already worked and we don't need to do this anymore. But they continued. And if you come to them and you say, why are you doing this? Well, they'll say, well, the Haredim are continuing their shtick and they're trying to impose their will on us. So we have to fight back. Listen, the Haredim weren't imposing any shtick on them in the 70s and 80s. Nobody was even trying to force them to do this, that, and the other. The Haredim were, everybody's kind of more or less respectful towards each other back then. Even back when we took Jerusalem, back when we had the wars and all that kind of stuff. Relatively speaking, there was unity in the country, relatively speaking. And all of a sudden they came out and they started just going against somebody. This was, a orchestrated attack against religion. And of course, what the Haredim are doing, have been doing, is just a reaction to the initial attacks, not the other way around. And they do this. And I told her, I'm like, unfortunately, they've got it to a point where they've got this down to a science, and they do this every single day. And so, listen, we have moments where religious and secular people, or like religious and even, kind of left-wing people, are able to come together and have a conversation. These are like one, on an individual level. But by and large, in terms of the groups, dude, I mean, Yair Lapid's dad, he did such a number in the Knesset. He was like probably historically the biggest religion hater, I think, in Israel's history. And now Yair Lapid, he's a chip of the old block. And then you have this lady, what's her name? Merav, she's responsible, Merav Mikaeli, Kastner's granddaughter. She's literally responsible for the deaths now in Hawara. They were going to build a regular road, so you don't have to go through that godforsaken town. And she diverted the money to, I don't know, some education projects, whatever, secular education. It's years and decades of this stuff, and you can't just like snap your fingers and go, everybody should just have unity and sing kumbaya. And we should stop, or she was saying, we should stop talking about these people and bringing more discord to the country. Well, listen, we have to weed some of these people. The people who follow them are not the cancer. The leaders are the cancer. We have to talk about Merav Mikaeli. We have to talk about Lapid. We have to talk about the Nitzan Horowitz. We have to weed them out. We must say their names. And
part of that is to expose who they really are, and what their religion is.
They're Erev, straight up.
We have to explain what that means.
Yeah, they're the mixed multitude.
Most people don't have the slightest idea. Like Kastner's niece. What was her name? She's
granddaughter.
Kastner's
Granddaughter.
Okay. It's too, I don't know how to bridge the gap between the crazy stuff that these people believe and the cult that they came from, that their grandparents and the great grandparents, right?
Yeah.
And just the today's basic mindset of like just a regular person, whether religious or not, right? They won't believe who these people are, the leaders of these movements, and what they actually believe.
Just like if you come and tell people that, hey, did you know, I recently tried to do this. Did you know that the reform movement comes from Shabtai Tzvi? They're like, what?
Yeah.
If you trace it back, if you keep going back and back, the Frankists. Yeah. They don't even know what Shabtai Tzvi is. Who Shabtai Tzvi is.
The followers of Shabtai Tzvi. First of all, you got to learn about Shabtai Tzvi. Then understand that he had followers. And then understand that those followers had followers and followers, and all the way to today. And those are the people right now who are in charge of your country.
Yeah.
In Israel.
Yeah.
Okay? They're not Jews. They're not Jewish. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Can we just for a second explain to the folks at home who may not know? I didn't know for like 15 years, the first 15 years of my life, what a creed was. Do you know what a creed is? What's the Jewish creed?
Like a ideology.
The 13 principles of faith. The 13 principles of faith.
Yeah.
All right. You have to look up. It was compiled. They weren't written and created, but Maimonides compiled them 1,000 years ago, famously. Okay. There are 13 religious principles that explain what the Torah faith is in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's what our creed is. Okay, so that's Jewish.
Yeah.
All right, that's what I mean when I say Jewish. That's what I mean. Okay, I'm not talking about who your mom was or where you came from genetically or the people.
Yeah.
But let's say you speak to an Irishman, right? All of a sudden you hear him he hates everything Irish. He hates Ireland. He hates green grass. He hates good butter that's made from pasteurized cows. Okay, he hates everything. He hates Irish music, Irish history, everything. Is that guy Irish?
Yeah,
I don't know. You know what I mean? Like he's not very Irish.
In our community, if you come to a person that hates everything Jewish, but you call them not Jewish, oh, what do you? Or you do something against Jews. Anti-Semite. Oh, I'm Jewish.
That's what. Yeah, that's why.
What?
That's what to me anti-Semitism. Like if somebody hated, let's say, some of my Noahide people who aren't Jewish at all, and they're hating on them. That's more anti-Semitism to me. Or than somebody who hates Soros.
Yeah, dude. I mean, we know this from the story recently with Tovia Singer, who saw some video, by an evangelical, I don't know, I think it was a missionary evangelical, who claimed that Lichi Lapid, Lapid's wife, believed in Yoshka, right? So Tovia Singer basically said, listen, he called her out and said, can you please disavow this? And what does she do? She posts on her Instagram this whole thing about my grandfather was a big rabbi in Europe or in Israel or something, or Lithuania, I'm sorry. Haredi rabbi, and how dare you call me not Jewish? And Tovia Singer's like, I never called you not Jewish. I said that you are a Jew who believes in Yosh. You might be a Jew who believes in Yoshka. And all of a sudden, this woman is up in arms that she's offended that she's not Jewish. A person who does everything against, married to a person whose father and a person himself, doing everything against Judaism and the Torah, all of a sudden is offended that somebody may think that she's not Jewish.
Can I, just to understand what Tovia Singer's talking about, what I was trying to communicate, I don't know how successfully, but would it be all right with everyone here if I just it'd take a minute and a half to read the 13 principles of faith? Would that be all right with everyone present? Yeah. It doesn't look like it's okay with Tzvi, but I'm going to go ahead and
please do it.
Anyway. Right.
Just take that amount of time that you said, not any longer.
You saw the worry on his face. He's like, well, I deserve it because I am long-winded, but I'm gonna just read it. I'm not gonna give a commentary. Okay.
Yeah.
Unless asked. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is the Jewish creed, folks. If you didn't know, many people don't. Principle number one, I believe by complete faith that the Creator, blessed be his name, is the creator and guide for all created beings. He alone makes, and will make all that is created.
Yeah.
Okay. Number two, I believe by complete faith that the Creator, blessed be his name, is a unity. And there is no union in any way like him. He alone is our God, who was, who is, and who is to be, always will be. Number three, I believe by complete faith that the Creator, blessed be his name, is not a body, is not affected by physical matter, and nothing whatsoever can compare to him or be compared with him. Principle four, I believe by complete faith that the Creator, blessed be his name, is the first and the last. Five, I believe by complete faith that the Creator, blessed be his name, to him alone is it fitting to make prayer, and to another prayer shall not be made. Only pray to God, to the Creator that we've so far described. That's it. Okay. Principle number six, I believe by complete faith that all the words of the prophets are true. The prophets meaning the ones in Tanakh, the Hebrew scripture. Okay. Number seven, I believe by complete faith that the prophecy of Moses, our teacher, Moshe Rabbeinu, may peace rest upon him, was true, and that he was the father of all prophets that preceded him, as well as those that came after him. What did you say?
Nothing, I just coughed.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you wanted me to give a commentary. I got excited. Okay. Just kidding. Principle number eight, I believe by complete faith that the whole Torah, now found in our hands, was the exact same one given to Moses. May peace be upon him. Principle number nine, I believe by complete faith that this is the Torah, and it shall not be changed, and it shall not be replaced with another from the Creator. Blessed be his name. Okay, Torah is immutable. I believe by complete faith, this is number 10. I believe by complete faith that the Creator, blessed be his name, knows every action done by each human being as well as all their thoughts. As it was said, quote, it is he that fashions the hearts together, and he ponders all their deeds. That's from the book of Psalms, Psalm 33, verse 15. Principle 11. I believe by complete faith that the Creator, blessed be his name, rewards all who keep his commandments and punishes all those who transgress his commandments. Principle 12. I believe by complete faith in the coming of the Messiah. And even though he may tarry, in spite of that, I will still wait expectantly for him each day that he will come. And finally, principle 13. I believe by complete faith that there will be a resurrection of the dead at the time that will be pleasing before the Creator, meaning when God chooses. Blessed be his name. And the remembrance of him will be exalted forever and for all eternity. Yeah. That's it. That's the Jewish creed. Okay. Very few people know that. As Michael Caine would say. It's not many people that know that.
You know, the only one that I find like, I want to say difficult to, I guess, internalize or imagine is the last one. And the only reason I believe it is because I have a mitzvah to believe it. You know, it's just like, it's interesting because I have a friend that has this whole thing. He says, you know, if you came to rabbis in the, I guess, the 1700s or 1800s, anywhere in the world, any big rabbi in the world, in the diaspora, and you said, you know, in the near future, we're going to have Jewish people are going to come back to Israel. We're going to have a state. We're going to have an army. We're going to have all these things. We're going to have like an infrastructure, however it's going to be, good, bad, ugly. They're going to say, I believe you, but the only reason I believe you is because I have actually a mitzvah to believe you, meaning it's somewhere written in the Tanakh, in our writings, that this is going to happen in the future. It would be like if somebody came to us today and said that the dead will rise. It's also in the Tanakh, right? So we have just like they believe that there's going to be a state in the future, we have to believe that the dead are going to rise. So the question is, what's easier? I think it's a little bit easier to believe that there's going to be, even with all the tumbleweeds that were rolling around Israel, the land of Israel at that time, it was a little bit easier to believe that there's going to be a state, an army, and all these things. Dead will rise. Wow, dude, our generation has to make a bigger leap, I think.
I've heard that story. I have to disagree. Okay. Not because that's what I do, but because I disagree.
Yeah.
It's not.
By the way, before you finish, Lola's giving me the.
Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. All right. Look, here's
getting the hook.
I'm getting the hook. I'm getting the gong. Damn.
Gong show, yeah.
The gong show. Anyway, but basically, it's much easier to believe that in the future, some geographic location on Earth will be developed and there might be people in a country there. That's not crazy, okay? I understand what it feels like to a Jew who lives in the exile. That's what it feels like. But in reality, it's not so crazy to think that in the future, there's going to be a place. Is it so crazy to believe Antarctica, right? Yeah. If it warms up in the future, there might be people who move there and start a settlement. Not so crazy. Okay. No. Now, why do I believe the 13th principle? Because I know the Torah is real. Yeah. Okay. Mathematically speaking, physically, materially, mathematically speaking, I know the Torah is real because the Torah says so. That's why I believe it.